Today's episode is with Sandeep Agarwal.
I think culture is super important. It's a very underrated piece. It is very difficult to build trust and collaboration between these teams because other colleagues. You genuinely have to come across as a good, approachable person.
Like in many conversations, the moment security team walks in,
The same is with many training programs will talk about how to create a strong password. You feel security when it does not work well. When an incident happened, that is when improving security does not necessarily have to be a budgetary item every time. So
or we should start with foundation first and then think about like these certifications or compliance. What's your take?
so
Hi everyone, this is Purushottam and thanks for tuning into Scale to Zero podcast. Today's episode is with Sandeep Agarwal. He's a security specialist at Google Cloud and brings 2 decades of security, risk, compliance, and audit experience, particularly in the financial services domain. He was the CISO at Max Life Insurance and Moody's Analytics in India, and VP of InfoSec and Data Protection Officer at OakNorth, a cloud-based fintech firm in UK. He's passionate about evangelizing the security, risk, compliance, and the benefits that cloud computing brings to organizations of all shapes and sizes. With that, welcome to the podcast, Sandeep. It's lovely to have you here.
thanks for having me, Purushottam.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our pleasure. Before we start, do you want to briefly share about your journey?
So again, this was, I think, a lot of luck. I believe luck plays a great amount of role in everybody's life, and for me it was no different, but it was also a combination of my conscious decision. So I did my computer science and engineering from Indian School of Mines, Dhanbad, and I was always interested in the field of networking and computer graphics. For some reason, these two fields always excited me.
Okay.
When I was doing my engineering, this concept, there was no courses or subjects on information security or cyber security as such. So networking was a clear path to get into this
Mm-hmm.
domain. So what happened is, I happened to get placed in the Defense Research Organization, and over there, I went to a lab which worked on security stuff. So based on my interest, I had a mentor who gave me assignment on just creating software so that our armed forces can securely communicate between each other. So that was my first tryst with security. Then I went to do my MBA again. I consciously chose subjects like IT
Okay.
management, and then I got hired by a company for something which MBAs are hired for, like a data warehouse and business intelligence consultant. But I, in the company that hired me, you had to do a 3 month internship before you started off your official role.
Okay.
So in those 3 months, they floated our resumes to every team that here we have a bunch of interns and see what you can do with
Mm-hmm.
them. So my resume was picked up by the chief security officer of the organization because of my DRDO
Ah.
experience, and I spent 2 months working in the networking department of a big investment bank.
Mm-hmm.
So that he took me for 3 months. I joined them. I liked the bunch of people. When you're starting off your career, all that matters is you have a good set of folks
Yeah.
who you like to hang around
Yeah.
with. I obviously liked the work because networking, security, these were all things. And because I did my MBA, I always had a liking for risk
Hmm.
management, and so that role was a great intersection of my interest areas, what I wanted to do, good set of people. So I asked and and luckily they also liked me. The chief security officer liked me, and I told them that I'd like to continue here. I don't want to go and do data warehousing and business
Mm-hmm.
intelligence. Yeah. And he pulled his weight around in the organization and got myself reallocated to his org, and
Lovely.
that was the start of a lovely 20-year career so far. And I don't regret that. Any like every day still feels so fresh. Of course, in these 2 decades, I have done multiple roles. I've been with multiple organizations. I was lucky enough to get chance to be on different sides of the table. I've been a security consultant in a big four. I've been a security auditor, an IT auditor. I've been a security implementer.
Hmm.
and now I'm a security specialist with a cloud provider in a pre-sales role. So yeah, it's been a very happy journey so far, and yeah, cybersecurity. And when I started in the
Hmm.
2000s, security was not as exciting or as sexy a space as it
It is
is
today. Yeah.
today. Uh, but with the advent of cloud computing and IT and mobile technologies and IoT and so much of digitalization happening in the society, and which has brought and attracted a lot of bad people, so which has made cybersecurity such an important thing for every
Yeah.
organization. So what used to be like a small team sitting in an IT department
Hmm.
somewhere, today is a board discussion topic, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So yeah, it's a super exciting time to be in cybersecurity. But yeah, I never thought it would turn up like this. Even though I was very excited about security all my life, I never thought it'd be this glamorous. Like half of the people who I meet or literally want aspire to be related to
Yeah.
security. It was not so when
Yeah. Yeah.
I was starting.
No, totally. Even I feel the same that when I started my career, there was not a lot of focus on security. It was more around building something and just more around business, running the business. But now security is also getting equal importance. And I hope that we'll get to touch some of these areas during the recording today. Before we start, one question that I generally ask all of our guests, and we get unique answers, is what does a day in your life look like? So, yeah, what does it look like for you nowadays?
Okay, so I mean, I rise at 6 a.m. I go for a small workout, come back, dress up, turn up to office at 8:30 a.m. after dropping my kid to school, and yeah, work begins with checking few emails announcements as to what did Google Cloud announce the previous night, because a lot
Hmm.
of our engineering and product teams are based out of the US. So catching up on our latest announcements, looking at what if there are any customer engagements. So I'm a customer engineer. My role is a customer engineer, security specialist. So a large part of my life or a day in my life goes towards solving security problems, whether it is addressing a customer who has a concern related to adopting a particular service or Google Cloud,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
it is about they want to do something and they want me to have a look as a security specialist and tell them, give them guidance as to are they doing it well, how can they do it better. And then
Right.
a lot of the rest of the time when I'm not talking to customers and I really love solving security problems. So I'm constantly either practicing building out a small demo inside my own
Ah.
learning environment, or researching something which is coming up new, learning about new uh, other companies, how are they solving problems. So Cloudanix, learning about how do they do stuff, how
Hmm.
do other security partners. So it's a, as I said earlier, it's a great space to be in. So I love to learn a lot about, because you never know when can a particular piece of tech or a thought process can help solve a customer problem. So yeah, and then
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
retire in the evening by unwinding, watching, um yeah, just spending some time on the internet, letting it guide me to wherever. I just like to be curious, and then yeah, I go to bed by 10 p.m.
Okay. I what I hear is you spend a lot of time in learning and also trying to see how you can help customers, right? Both from a to capabilities or services that Google Cloud provides, and also you are working with partners to see what's the best fit for the customer. So there will be a lot of learning as part of that as well, I can imagine. Uh, so let's get started into the security questions, right? So today we are going to talk about cloud security in general and compliance, trust. Uh, so my first question to you is like when it comes to IT security, whether it's cloud or on-prem, most organizations have like dedicated security teams, and one of the critical factors for success is which not many people talk about is trust. And it may seem like an underrated area, but I think it's important. So let's start with that. What are your views on trust and building trust across like security and rest of the organization?
Sure, Purushottam. And before I get to respond to many of your questions, I'm a very opinionated person, and so I'd like to tell everybody who's listening is that the views that I share here are completely my own. They are not necessarily aligned to those of my employer, so I'm representing myself as an individual here. Now, coming to your question, which is on the importance of trust in
Mm-hmm,
security, I really believe that I think culture is super important. It's a very underrated piece. Most CISOs, security teams who I talk about, they're very excited about the latest, fanciest tools that are there in the market, but there's nobody who gives any importance or as much importance as I believe they should be giving to culture. And good culture comes from having great trust between teams. So I think it's a super important component of building good culture. And if you ask me to define trust, trust can mean different people to different things to different people. What I believe is trust is gained and established by doing two things. One is people will trust you when they observe consistency over a period of time between what you say and what you do, between your words and your
mm-hmm,
actions. And the second thing is trust is gained by giving back control. So if you want the rest of your organization to trust you as a security team, it also depends on how much control have you given back to them and relied on their good judgment. Because I've seen many security teams who try to be very controlling. For example, I've come and worked in organizations, and there are so many organizations today who try to control every bit of what their users can do or not. For example, there are
mm-hmm.
organizations who control whether people can access YouTube and whether people can access news sites, social media sites while there. So it comes with a lot of insecurity, and with insecurity, they try to overimpose things which makes
Yeah.
people hate their security team. So I think it is super important that good trust is built. It's a foundation of your security program, and trust is very difficult to build, but very easy to lose. Like
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a quote by Warren Buffett, who said that it can take you 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. So it's also something that has to be treated with caution.
Yeah, it is very true, and it is something very similar what I heard this week. So I was at Forward Cloud Sec, and I met with few leaders, and they were also talking about very similar thing what you said, right? One is no matter what tools you bring in or whatever you do, people are your real asset. Like your security engineers are your real asset. So you like going back to the culture thing that you highlighted, right? Building the right culture helps you build successful programs in longer term, and trust plays a key role in that as well. Um, a follow up question to this is, you said that it's difficult to build. What challenges have you seen customer organizations face while building it, or how can they build collaboration between security and rest of the organization?
Yeah, so I think some of it is by design. So when you deal with any regulated or a highly, if you look at a large enterprise,
Mm-hmm,
or if you really take down any business and ask a CEO what are your objectives, they would say three things. One would be say increase revenue, second would be decrease
mm-hmm,
costs, and the third would be to reduce risk. So what organizations
mm-hmm,
typically the way they design their structure is, the classic lines of defense. So you'll have some business functions who would think that their only job is to increase revenue, or there will be some operations teams
right.
who think their only job is to decrease costs, and then there will be risk teams and security teams and legal teams who believe that their only role is to reduce risk. The challenge with this kind of an approach is when these teams start believing that their objectives are in isolation. So one thinks increasing revenue is
Hmm.
in isolation. Security team believes my role is to minimize or eliminate any kinds of cyber risk. and keep a check on those guys, whereas the dev and the ops teams believe their responsibility is to keep the business running. So I think when you have this kind of a mindset and again culture, it is very difficult to build trust and collaboration between these teams, because each of them feel that they can only be successful at the cost of the other. So
Yeah.
I think the way to solve this would be to have a belief that these things are all aligned. One should not
Mm-hmm.
come at the cost of the other. It is possible to increase cost and reduce risk. And again, these things, there are many people who have said this before me as well, that it's also like your ability to reduce risk actually helps you increase revenue. So you many people would have heard the classic car brakes and accelerator thing. The way these
Mm-hmm.
two work in unison, having brakes actually allows you to move farther, faster. So yeah, I think a classic way to the way I like to define, and I picked this quote from Eric Brandwein, who was the deputy CISO of AWS, and who I consider as my mentor, is he feels and he says, which I completely agree with, the objective of any security program is to maximize the business value of security,
Mm-hmm.
and at a minimum risk and at a minimum cost. So, when security teams start believing that their role is to ultimately maximize business value, not just minimize risk for the sake of minimizing risk, that is when these objectives start converging, and that is when these teams start looking at each other, uh, and start trusting each
As
other because,
partners.
yeah, as partners.
As
Yeah.
partners. Yeah. And I think the key term that you used is the collaboration and alignment, right? Instead of working in isolation. If the security team is just thinking about building security controls and enforcing security controls and what is the best in security, then you are putting other areas at risk, right? You might buy security tools, you might hire many people, but if you are not helping grow the revenue, uh, then you're out of business, right? In a way, I think this is one of the quote that I read somewhere, that a secure business is out of business. A fully
A
secure
fully
business
secured,
is out of
yeah,
business.
true.
Yeah, yeah. So you have to find balance between all the three areas, right? Rather than just looking at one area. Which brings me to my next question, that you definitely suggested that it should be collaboration and alignment. Any tactics that you recommend organizations so that they can work well?
I think not treating your security team as a department of no, like not accepting a simple no answer from your security team. One of my previous bosses, so there was a point. So I used to work with a company where I had a dotted reporting line to the head of IT, and that was a time when the security team moved out of the IT team and went to the risk team, because the regulator
Okay.
wanted to have a check and balance. They did not. They
Hmm.
specifically wanted to avoid this conflict of interest when a CISO is reporting to the head of IT, the CTO.
Hmm.
So the
Hmm.
person told me that, Sandeep, when I come to you with a thing, please don't just tell me no. Give me a path to yes. Tell me that yes, we
Hmm.
should do it, but these are the three things or four things that you need to do. I think when, as a security person, if you adopt that kind of a mindset, that sure, we need to do this. This is a business initiative, there's an IT initiative, and here is how you can secure it, or here is how you can, find out a way which,
Make it work.
yes.
Yeah.
And also, one
Yeah.
final element is security teams also need to, relax a bit and hang out with other colleagues. You genuinely have to come across as a good, approachable person. Like if you,
Hmm.
yeah, I've seen people who take their jobs very seriously. They don't are not very liked individuals. Of course, you need to take hard and firm stances. It's not that you come across as a pushover person who can be pushed around. But yeah, you generally need to like hang out, have a chat, have a coffee, have lunch with those folks, because this will also give you empathy.
No, no,
Understand?
totally agree. Like when you said security is seen as a team of, no, that is very real. Like I have been in many meetings, I'm pretty sure you must have been as well. Like in many conversations, the moment security team walks in to the meeting, everybody starts uh, like smiling or like, yeah, we'll hear no's from them most of the times. Whatever we say that, hey, we need this, we need that. That's where I like the suggestion that you made, right? That instead of just saying no, show me the path to yes. So that the rest of the organization understands that, yeah, security is enabling us, not just blocking us at every point, right? Now, my next question is, security is a team sport, right? Like we have been speaking about, like security and rest of the organization, they should mingle with others and stuff like that. And in order to make the organization understand the importance of security, not just within the security team itself, we often have to uh, like train the rest of the organization. And this not only helps them to judge whether it's a phishing attack or a threat, but at the same time understand the gravity of them as well, right? So I have uh, one question that comes to my mind is, what effective ways have you seen organizations can follow to build security
Got it.
awareness?
So, again, security, as I say, is ultimately a cultural thing. You
Hmm.
can have the fanciest of training programs, you can have great training modules, in person trainings, classroom trainings, big halls full of trainings, but ultimately people will do what they say other colleagues do. They will also look
Hmm.
at how do their CEOs or their senior leaders inside the organization, what do they do when they are faced with a thing where they need to balance security versus business? Like, what are some of their
Right.
actions? How do they treat security actually in a day-to-day working? So I think those softer elements, how does the CEO or a senior leader in the organization, how do they voice over security in a town hall meeting? Do they brush it
Hmm.
under the carpet, or do they actually bring it to forefront and highlight the importance of security? It's like, following traffic rules or maintaining cleanliness. When new people join an organization, they will look and observe people. What are they doing around you? So I think it's ultimately a cultural thing. And personally speaking, I'm not a big fan of traditional security awareness trainings. Trust me, nobody likes going through 1 hour, 2 hours of trainings. People take it as
Yeah.
a huge pain. And the good thing is that there are a lot of security controls that can minimize the cognitive load that you put on your users to make the right decisions. For example,
Hmm.
if phishing is the most common user awareness training,
Right.
there are FIDO compliant keys, security keys, which
Yeah.
give you phishing resistant MFA, which eliminates the
Hmm.
need to do traditional phishing awareness trainings at all. Like the last two organizations I've been part of, we don't do regular phishing trainings in these organizations, because these organizations have completely secured all user accounts using a phishing resistant key. The same is with
Hmm.
many training programs will talk about how to create a strong password. Today we have got this concept of pass keys or passwordless
Hmm.
authentication, which eliminates passwords altogether. Or there's stuff like Chrome operating system or Office 365 GWS, which removes the need for people to send attachments. So there is no risk. There's no risk even if you leak somebody, because as long as you're sending them a link, every document becomes a link. And if you're sending
Hmm.
links even to a wrong email address, nothing gets leaked, because until and unless you give somebody online access to that document, there's nothing is shared. So there's a lot of technology that people can adopt to eliminate these trainings altogether. Lastly, there will be some compliance related trainings. There's some minimum amount of training that you would need to do, because there are standards that mandate these trainings. My recommendation is to make it fun as much as possible. Try to
Hmm.
gamify it, make it a cool thing, like make it something that people are proud of completing, and make it dynamic. Like if somebody tests somebody on a topic, if they already know that topic, don't make them spend 15 minutes on it if they already know that topic.
Yeah. Totally agree. And I think this is one of the examples of the keys, right? Like hardware keys, or
Yeah.
nowadays with pass keys, you can even use like touch IDs or
Yes.
from like uh, Apple or Android devices for securing. And one thing that you highlighted, like you are going back to culture most of the times, and I totally see the relation of security with the culture, right? And the way you highlighted that you can, when you are onboarding an employee, you can give them a presentation on culture, but at the end of the day, they'll see how others are behaving, and based on that, they will learn that as the culture versus the tech that you presented while onboarding them, right? So the more and more your team is practicing security, the culture gets built around that as well, rather than just going through the trainings and just doing it once a year.
Absolutely.
So any tips that you have to promote a better way to make your organization aware of security? Because it's not just security team's responsibility, right? That everyone in the organization is accountable when it comes to security. Any other tips that you have?
I think one thing that one of my ex organizations, we did amazingly well, and this was not something that I did. It was percolated from the top, and like most matters related to culture, they flow from the top. So the
Mhm.
first thing is, security is a thing where you feel security when it does not work well. When an incident happened, that is when, and those are the times when people really observe how much of a blame game do you play when stuff goes
Yeah.
wrong. So I think
Hmm.
accountability is important, but if you want people to really feel that you everybody has a role to play in security, people have to adopt this concept of blameless postmortems. Again, the industry has adopted this pretty well when
Yeah.
it comes to incident management, etc. So don't look for a proverbial neck that needs to be hanged, right? Make it
Hmm.
okay. Like it's okay if an employee does something bad. Don't penalize the employee. Try to understand why did that happen.
Yeah.
Secondly, when stuff goes wrong, try to share those learnings from an incident. Share it as widely as possible. And when somebody has reported it, don't shoot the messenger. Make it easy for people to raise an alarm. Actually,
Yeah.
celebrate them and the fact that somebody got to raise an alarm, even if those alarms are false. One of my ex employees, again, what they did is they encouraged everybody who sees a security incident, even if they feel it's a
Hmm.
suspicion, they can raise a SEF2
Hmm.
ticket. A SEF2 ticket is the next ticket, like among SEF 1, 2, 3, 1 being the highest.
Right.
SEF2 tickets are somebody like a person in the security team would have to wake up in the middle of the night. So just giving people a very easy way to raise an alarm and not penalizing them for raising a false alarm, again just creates this virtuous cycle of security awareness and culture that, yeah, works wonders.
Oh, totally. I love how you said, right? Like, take the human element out of the postmortem. Otherwise, the moment you start blaming someone, they become defensive, right? And you will not get the information or the insight that you are trying to find out from them. Yeah, that's a very key tactic that you shared.
And what happens when you do that is people go into a shell and they would not report
Mhm.
anything the next time. And I see, I
Yes.
was an auditor for a long time in my career. You would ask
Mhm.
as an auditor, like, how many security incidents happened in the last 6 months, and the answer would be no security incidents happened. Now this is a classic case where stuff happened but nobody reported, which is even,
Exactly.
it's a worse thing than having security incidents. Not knowing security incidents is a worse place to be than having security incidents and knowing them. So, yeah, you don't
Yeah.
really want to be in a place where people are scared to call out the shit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If you are getting attacked and you feel like I cannot even report without being called out in public that hey, this person made a mistake, then I'll try to hide it, right? And which doesn't help the organization in any way. Um, One of the things that often security teams and organizations think about is security cannot be guaranteed, but it can be contained in a way, or we can minimize the attack surface. And often it comes down to defining the right security boundaries. Do you have any strategies to define security boundaries for different groups or even cloud resources?
Yeah. So yeah, again, great comment that your security cannot be guaranteed. There is no such thing as 100% security, and ultimately, security is an optimization problem. Like how much is
Hmm.
good enough to keep the attacker away, and so I think a lot of this having boundaries for users and cloud resources boils down to this principle of least privilege. Although it's
Mhm.
a great thought on paper, but it is very difficult to implement. So I don't want to trivialize this thing that hey, let's do principle of least privilege, and there is this magic button which can help you do this. Having said that, it is much easier to do this when you adopt this principle of infrastructure as code. One of the best things
Hmm.
about cloud is that you can define firewall servers, you know clusters, storage, all as code. And when you do that, you know exactly what resources are being created, who needs what permissions, what is allowed, what is disallowed in your environment. So automating stuff as code makes it much easier. But when you come to
Hmm.
humans, it is very difficult, because human beings, you never know what can they require. And if you try to be very
Right,
controlling and least privileged, you will ultimately stop them from doing the good things. So
right,
you want to start broad, but over a period take stock of what permissions have actually been used. So there are a lot of tools today in the
hmm,
market. Cloud providers themselves offer a lot of policy intelligence tools. There are a lot of third parties, security providers who have started solving this problem, who can look at the past activity. So it you'll solve this using big data. You will have a pool of activity which has happened historically. You will use it and say that, hey, amongst the 4,000 permissions you gave this particular cloud resource, or a
principle,
programmatic
yeah,
agent or a principal, only 70 have been used. So you can narrow it
right,
down to the 70 plus maybe a few, like 5 or 10, which they are likely to use because of other patterns that we have seen elsewhere. So using this, I think it's a great way to start broad but ultimately narrow down to exactly the permissions. And again, the other thing is, you don't want to do this everywhere. You want to do this for your production environments where you are really sure and you want to be very risk averse. But when it comes to dev
right.
test environments, innovation sandbox environments, you should be pretty liberal over there.
Okay. So yeah, I was going to ask like how can we balance productivity versus security? I think you highlighted two things, right? One is maybe start with broader set of permissions and optimize it as you see it's being used. Um, and the other thing is prod versus non-prod. Prod, restrict it down as much as you can, but when it comes to maybe a development environment, have developers more permission so that they can experiment with, let's say, a new service or new capability and things like that, which makes a lot of sense. Now, you highlighted one of the things, which is automation, right? And as businesses scale, organizations also move towards automation, and they continuously try to see how they can use automation for security as well. And what challenges have you seen when automation is there and you are trying to manage and audit the enforcement of security baselines?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I've seen, you know, is that as cloud adoption is becoming more automated, cloud security and many security teams who I see are still lagging behind in the adoption of an engineering mindset, especially when
Yeah.
it comes to auditing and enforcing baselines. So I see security teams, again, nothing against, I'm from the same community, but in the last 2 decades, a lot of security people have come across from a process background, or generally from a click ops background. So when they
Hmm.
come to auditing, and again, traditionally audits have been done periodically. So you will have an audit once every 6 months, once every year. You will take out a checklist. Or today you will use a tool to generate a checklist, which will send you a point in time report. Then they will disseminate and break that checklist and a typical Excel spreadsheet and send it to 50 different teams and then chase and follow up. But the thing with cloud is that in the time that you have waited to generate that thing, the cloud would have moved so much. And by the time you
Mhm,
are working on an offline checklist of things, your cloud
mhm.
environment would have changed by 50, 60% by the time you claim that everything is remediated. But in actual, that thing has moved because cloud is a living,
Right.
breathing animal. So I think these are the typical challenges uh, what I see in auditing security baselines.
Makes sense. No, a follow-up question to that is like you slightly touched on like half-yearly audits or quarterly audits where you are creating a checklist and going through it. Often it comes down to compliance, right? Like you have to be compliant to a particular like SOC 2s or HIPAAs of the world. Um, and which makes sense maybe when you are starting your organization. If you are in healthcare space, you have to be HIPAA compliant and so that you can run your business and stuff like that. Now, what do you think is the right time to maybe invest to improve overall security posture on top of these, on top of whatever you have done for security certifications?
I think the right time is now. Again, I'm not saying this because I'm a security nerd,
Mm-hmm,
but I think security is a should be a continuous journey,
mm-hmm,
and whether you are small, medium, large, whatever stage of your security maturity you are in, you should always do it again more as a cultural thing. And good culture is not something that you can fix with a tool or do it at a later stage. If you don't do
yeah,
security well when you are small or when you are young, you will not do it when you are big. So I think security needs to scale and grow with the business. And the important thing is, improving security does not necessarily have to be a budgetary item every time. So you don't need to wait until some big event happens, etc. What
right.
I have seen is, if many organizations, if they are smart about it, you can do a lot of things at a very minimal cost. There's so much of
Mm-hmm,
open source goodness available across the world. You obviously have to do your due diligence and be a bit careful. But if you play it smart, uh, you can do security well with a very lean budget. And actually,
hmm,
what I've not ironically, I've noticed that the biggest spenders on security are those who have deep rooted problems that they try to buy their way out of. So I
hmm,
think, yeah, if you try to make it a continuous exercise, the way I equate good security is like good health. If you do
mm-hmm.
certain, if you sleep well, if you eat well, you do a minimum
Basics,
amount of
right?
work, yeah, you should be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like what you pointed out, right? That often we don't focus on the basics. Rather, we look for edge scenarios and we focus a lot on that and we spend a lot of that while avoiding the basics. And what you mentioned, right? That maybe even with a smaller budget, you can have a very good security program if you do the basics right. Often we don't do MFA, but we are buying a tool to find out if any of our users are not following MFA or not, right? So doing the basics takes you a long way. Uh, uh, Last question that I have on security is uh, often this is a debate between practice like security and rest of the organization, even between security teams, is compliance versus security, right? Many people think that compliance is enough. Many people think that no, you need to have deep security. So for organizations, do compliance like certifications, is that a foundation to improve overall security, or we should start with foundation first and then think about like these certifications or compliance? What's your take on?
So I like to treat certifications as a milestone in a security journey. By itself, it should never be a destination, because you know you can have all of the compliances in the world, but you can still be horrible in security. So security is a risk management concept. Compliance is a compliance concept. Like, you need to fulfill certain obligations and prove something to somebody. So it is an
Mm-hmm,
intersection, but yeah, the way I see certifications is like a checkpoint to benchmark yourself against the industry. So So to that extent, it is good to have certifications. And of course, apart from the value that it gives you some structure to your security program, otherwise security can be very nebulous. It's a big risk management, especially with so much of tech adoption. You can easily get
Hmm.
lost. So certifications try to bring some method to the madness. Of course, for if you are in the trust business, for example, if I talk about the business of a cloud provider, where
Hmm.
you need the trust of your stakeholders, your customers, your whoever you are dealing with, your partners. You need to prove something to them, and it's a great value addition for a business when you have certifications that you can used to demonstrate the health of your security practices. It gives somebody outside an independent assurance that you are doing certain things well. Of course, by itself, it does not mean that everything you still need to have a lot of trust, and that's where large cloud providers have earned the trust, because anybody can have certifications at the end of the day, but ultimately it's your name, it's the consistency between how good you have been delivering and doing security well. But to the uninitiated, it's a great way to prove yourself and benchmark yourself against the industry. So it's a good thing. You should have it as a milestone, but don't stop just at certifications. Use it to prove it, and just move ahead. Yeah. Ultimately, it all
Yeah.
boils down to how well you manage your risks, not a bunch of paper that you have.
Right. And I slightly want to go back to the example that you gave, right? Like your health example, that you might do, let's say, exercises every day and all of that, but to set your, do the basics, but at the same time, you should have regular checkups to see how you are progressing, right? Overall, from a health perspective. So those are like different milestones you might have from a for your progress of your health to get it a better state, right? But that should not be a destination that, hey, I ran a marathon and then I'm done. Now I
Yeah,
can eat whatever I want and I don't have to go to the gym anymore, right?
true.
Uh, yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, with that, we come to the end of the security question section. Thanks, Sandeep, for the engaging conversation. Here is a summary of what I gathered from our conversation. First is, for organizations, alignment between revenue goals and cost reduction and risk is a key for success. Instead of teams working in isolation, collaborate to improve security of the organization. Second one is, security team is often seen as a team of no. Instead of saying no, security teams should show a path to yes to the business, so that they are not seen as roadblocks in future. The last one is, the most important asset in security is not the tools or processes, but the people. And people consider what they observe as the culture versus what is preached. So practice security basics in a right way to set a solid foundation. Thank you. This next section focuses on, so the way it works is, I'll highlight a security practice, and I'm looking for a rating from you from 1 to 5, 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. So the first one is, conduct periodic security audits to identify vulnerabilities, threats, and weaknesses in your systems and applications.
So, if I break this into two parts, I'm a big fan of uh, conducting, knowing what your vulnerabilities are, but I hate periodic audits. I Today we live in an age of
Okay.
cloud security. I want audits to be real time. If you are the security
Mm-hmm.
team running a cloud estate or even an on-prem estate, I want to know within seconds when stuff goes wrong inside my environment. So I'd give it possibly say a 3, yeah, out of 5.
Okay.
I'd like it to be more
Makes sense.
continuous and real time.
Mm-hmm. The next one, we touched on this slightly during the security questions, is provide training and awareness programs to employees to help them identify and respond to potential security threats.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of periodic trainings and awareness. Yeah, you got to. Stuff has been solved through tech, so it's high time that we adopt tech, which makes it easier for security. So many a times, security tools are thought of introducing friction, so many people are hesitant to
Hmm.
adopt. But these days, you have stuff like passwordless security keys, etc., that actually make it simpler for users. So I don't see any reason why you should, yeah, make your users' life miserable. Firstly, by not giving them the tech, and secondly, by imposing hour-long, boring security trainings on them. So yeah, I'd give it
Rating system.
a one.
Okay. Speaking of passwords, the last question is, or last practice is, use strong passwords that contain a mix of upper and lowercase characters, numbers, and symbols, and change it frequently and avoid using the same password for multiple accounts.
So yes, again, I'll give it one. I hate this concept. Again, I took my time to overcoming this thought process. I was born up. My security career was born in an environment where we were taught that good passwords are a mix of uppercase, lowercase, etc., etc.,
Yeah.
and changing it frequently. Passwords, and it's a proven thing now, and IST has recommended it, and many organizations like Google, we don't enforce periodic password changes to our for our employees. Passwords are supposed to be long. Passwords are supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be, and you have to protect your accounts using multi-factor authentication. So if you have already
Yeah.
introduced something like multi-factor authentication, your password itself does not carry that amount of weight. It has to be long enough to introduce randomization, but it
Right.
should be in a way that people can remember it easily. And that is where I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big fan of password managers. So whether you use a password manager that comes with your favorite browser, or a tool like a pass key, a key pass, or I think LastPass, uh,
Last pass.
one
Yeah.
password.
One
My
password.
favorite is
Yeah.
Bitwarden. I use Bitwarden to store all my passwords. So my passwords are truly random, super long, 16 character, 14 character passwords, and I don't change them unless and until I believe that they have been compromised. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's my recommendation. So I'd give that a one rating.
Yeah, we use Bitwarden as well, and I agree. Like some of these practices have been there for decades, and at that time there was no concept of MFA, or it was not that widely adopted. And even the password managers that you highlighted, right? Nowadays it's super easy. It's available in your system. It's available in your browsers. It's available on your phone, so you can sync them up as well. So it has become more convenient to use some of these tools.
And I'll tell you
So yeah,
a small joke. Like, I had an
sure.
organization which adopted a 30-day password rotation practice, a 30-day. So, what employees, I
Hmm.
know of a few employees, what they used to do is they used to select their password as January 123 hash, February 123 hash, March 123 hash. So, users will find a way around. You don't want to make their lives miserable and actually degrade
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
security posture. You think you're doing good in security,
Yeah,
but actually it's a worse thing.
yeah. And another thing is sometimes folks write it in a sticky notes or something, and they keep it in the desk drawer or something, right? So that it's easy to remember if it is long and it's random, and you have to change maybe every
Yeah.
often and stuff like that. So yeah, very valid point. Um, with that, we come to the end of the episode. But before I let you go, I have one last question, which is: do you have any recommendation for our audience? It can be a blog or a book or a podcast or anything.
So, one of the things that has shaped my learning and journey as a security person is Eric Brandwin. I mentioned him earlier in our podcast. He was the
Hmm.
deputy CISO of AWS at one point in time. He's still a distinguished engineer with AWS, and he has done a lot of talks at reInvent, which is
Hmm.
AWS's flagship marketing and learning conference. Yeah, I for people who want to know more about culture and how do you do security at scale, I'd highly recommend watching Eric's talks at reInvent.
Okay. Yeah. With that, thank you so much, Sandeep, for joining and sharing your learning. I'm pretty sure that we can record another episode just on culture. I know that we touched on multiple areas, but yeah, thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge and experience with us.
It was fun talking to you, Purushottam. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you to our audience as well for watching. See you in the next episode.